right.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello. Hey, hello there. It's me, Andres Martinez, a NASA engineer. Welcome to Destination Space 2021.
Oops, Mr. Martinez, you're muted right there.
Oops. Hello there. My name is Andres Martinez. I'm a NASA engineer, and I work for the Advanced Exploration Systems Division. At NASA, we are very excited about you joining us for Destination Space 2021, a series of incredible talks. Today, we have a very special guest. Please meet Mr. Jay Hollenbeck. He's with us. Can you please wait? Yeah, Mr. Jay Hollenbeck. Mr. Hollenbeck recently served as a Space Launch System Program Executive at NASA headquarters. He's currently working on the upper stage for the Block 1 SLS rocket. We call it the Interim Cryogenic Propulsion Stage. He's going to give you an overview of this big rocket that we're planning to use in our Artemis program, our moon program. Remember yesterday we talked about going back to the moon? Well, today, Mr. Hollenbeck's going to talk about the rocket that we're going to use to get there. Okay, please welcome Mr. Hollenbeck. He's going to tell you all about this incredible rocket that is almost ready to take us to the moon. You may begin, Mr. Hollenbeck. I think you're muted too, sorry. You're muted, Mr. Hollenbeck.
How about now?
There we go.
All right, hang on one second. I'm gonna get back to my presentation. All right, little technical difficulties. Welcome, Allen Rock Union School District. I really appreciate you guys for joining us. My name is Jay Hollenbeck. I'm the recently former program exec for Space Launch System, aka the SLS rocket, and I'm here to help just teach you a little bit about America's largest rocket and how massive this thing is. I'm really excited that you guys are here. Thanks, Andres, for the awesome introduction. Currently, now that I'm done with being the program exec for SLS, I'm currently managing the integration and delivery of the SLS upper stage, which is called the Interim Cryogenic Propulsion Stage. And that's the this upper stage that propels Orion crew capsule to the vicinity of the moon. So today I'm going to teach you guys about NASA's SLS rocket, which is the heavy lift crew transportation vehicle for the Artemis program. I think a couple of you guys already heard Mr. Kirisic talk a little bit about the Artemis program. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on our transportation system. This transportation system is also a large cargo payload deliverer as well as the crew. So today what I want to do is I want to start by giving you the history of how Space Launch System, the rocket came to be, how it compares to the previous NASA human spaceflight transportation vehicles, and what makes up this massive American heavy lift rocket. After that, I'll go into the details of the upcoming Artemis 1 mission and its objectives, and follow that by what the future holds for the world's most powerful and orange rocket, as you can see. So, as it has been for all explorers, transportation was the key challenge and enabler to exploration. That is especially true for space exploration. SLS was designed to take more crew and more cargo to deep space destinations like the moon than any other existing space transportation vehicle. Here you can see the relative size of NASA's launch vehicles. Have you guys ever been to the Statue of Liberty in New York City? Well, if you have, the first three SLS rockets, known as Block 1, are shown right in the middle. So if you can see right here, this is the SLS Block 1. And it's right next to the space shuttle. So most people that are familiar with SLS or NASA are familiar with the space shuttle. So the Block 1 is 322 feet tall, which is a little bit shorter than the Apollo Saturn V rocket. If you ever stood underneath the Statue of Liberty, which is about 305 feet tall, the SLS would be about 17 feet taller than Lady Liberty. Eventually, future SLS rocket configurations will end up being 60 feet taller than America's iconic landmark and just 2 feet taller than Apollo Saturn V. So the first SLS for Artemis 1 will be able to carry 154,000 pounds of supplies, which is equivalent to about 12 elephants. The next two SLS rockets for Artemis 2 and 3 missions will also use the same Block 1 configuration that you see right here in the middle. Future missions to Mars will require even more supplies. So the larger version of the SLS, shown on the far right, called Block 2, will be able to carry up to 286,000 pounds of supplies, which again, equivalent to elephants, that's about 22 elephants, so it's a lot. One of NASA's first goals after it was founded in 1958 was to land astronauts on the moon and then return them safely back to the Earth. So the moon is roughly 239,000 miles from Earth, and it took a big rocket to get there, the Saturn V, which is right here. The Saturn V was designed, built, and optimized for one thing: sending astronauts and everything they needed to land on the moon and return to the Earth safely. That included the Apollo command and service module and the lunar module that they had to land on the surface with. After Apollo, which allowed 12 men to walk on the moon, between 1969 and 1972, NASA decided to focus on setting up a permanent presence in low Earth orbit, which is only about 250 miles up. So the moon is 1,000 times farther than where we have the International Space Station, which is 200 miles up, or 250 miles up. We had built the space shuttle to get us back and forth as a transportation vehicle to get to that destination in low Earth orbit. Now that we've been living and working continuously in space for about 20 years, we want to go back to the moon using all the tools and technology advancements since the Apollo era, as well as what we've learned from the last 20 years on the International Space Station. We don't want to go back to the moon, but forward to the moon. We want to set up shop around the moon like we did with ISS. And we will need to build a new science outpost called Gateway. In order to go forward to the moon, we've been building this really big SLS rocket, and the first one has already started to get assembled at the Cape in Florida. So, what parts make up an SLS rocket? Well, you've got these four main components right here that I'm going to run you through some quick facts. So the boosters right here on the left, the SLS solid rocket boosters are similar to the space shuttle boosters, but larger and more powerful with a little bit of extra propellant in the fifth segment. So the space shuttle had 4, SLS has 5. They also feature all new avionics, which are the computer and electronics that help navigate and put the SLS rocket on the right course, and more environmentally benign insulation. So the insulation is better for the environment. They always work in pairs too. So for boosters, we have a right-hand booster and a left-hand booster, and they provide about 75% of all the SLS's thrust, which equates to 8.4 million pounds of total thrust. So each booster is about 177 feet tall, or and one by itself is just 30 feet shorter than an entire Falcon 9 rocket. Each booster burns through about 1.4 pounds of propellant in about 2 minutes. So these boosters burn for 2 minutes and then they jettison off the main core stage. That's an average of 5.5 tons of propellant every second. Each booster's thrust is about 14 4-engine Boeing 747s taking off at full power. So if you've ever seen the airport there in San Francisco, think of 14 big 747s that are going on an international flight taking off. That's how much these are putting out in thrust. So the engines, going over here, there are 4 RS-25 engines versus 3 that we use on the space shuttle. They have new controllers, software, and nozzle installation. Some fast facts about the core stage engines. The RS-25 high-pressure fuel turbo pumps generate about 100 horsepower for each pound of its weight. While a car you drive on the road, it generates about 1/2 horsepower for each pound of its weight. So big, significant amount of power. During our first 4 Artemis missions, the SLS program starts to fly with 14 RS-25 engines that we had during the shuttle program. And we also have 2 more serialized engines that we're going to be building that are from leftover space shuttle spares. Moving to the third component, the core stage, which is built by Boeing. We just shipped that thing to Stennis Space Center in Mississippi back in January 2020 for the green run testing. That's when we lifted it up into the B2 test stand just a few days later. For the first year, we've been testing our first core stage, and we should finish up with a big hot fire, which I'll show you a video of in a little bit, just here in a few short weeks. So some fun facts about the core stage. The SLS core stage will be the tallest rocket stage ever flown. When completed, the core stage will be 212 feet tall, and it's about 27.6 feet wide in diameter. So going across, it's 27 feet wide. That's pretty big. The core stage was built in New Orleans at our big rocket factory just east of New Orleans using state-of-the-art manufacturing tools. It includes the world's largest friction stir welding machine, also called the Vertical Assembly Center. For the upper stage right here that you see, and this is actually the part I work on, so this is my favorite part. The upper stage on Artemis 1, 2, and 3 will be using the interim cryogenic propulsion system for ICPS. That will propel our Orion crew capsule to the moon via translunar injection. For the ICPS, it utilizes one Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10 engine, which has about 25,000 pounds of thrust. And since you're in space, you don't need as much thrust because you don't have to cheat gravity as much like you do here on Earth. The RL-10 engine is an extremely dependable in-space workhorse of an engine and has been in service since 1962. So the RL-10 engine on that thing is about as old as NASA is. So the upper stage is connected to the core stage, this part right here at the very top. If I can get my mouse to go there. So this part connects to the top part of the core stage using a launch vehicle stage adapter, which is a taper that tapers the rocket from that 27.6 feet wide down to 16.4 feet wide. And it houses the ICPS, that upper stage, inside of it. On top of the ICPS, the Orion stage adapter, which you see right here next to it, or the OSA as it's called, connects the upper stage with the Orion crew capsule and the European service module, both of which are now roommates in the Space Station Processing Facility at Kennedy, and they are both ready for stacking. This OSA also holds 13 CubeSats, which Andreas gets to work on quite a bit, plus the avionics unit for Artemis 1. But I'll tell you guys more about those later. So, how is progress on Artemis 1 going? I think you'll be pretty impressed. Watch this video and you'll see. So everybody likes to see smoke and fire, and it never fails to impress. Before we send people into space on SLS, we have to put things through some very powerful propulsion systems tests. And basic materials and subscale components and systems get to finally make full-scale tests of flight-like hardware. This was our test of our booster in this past September in Utah. So this was our hot fire test that we just did in January. This was the first fully integrated test of the flight stage and its engines. You'll get to see the hydrogen burn off with the spark igniters at first, and then you'll see the engine turn super cold when it gets done.
And we're to press count. Engine start. We're into press count. Stop for stop, please continue to monitor your system. And we're SSC in control. All right, first 25 seconds. GDRA, we did get an MCF on engine 4. Got that, but we're still running. Still got 4 good engines, right? Got that. Right. Put the SF3 left 60 plus 60 seconds. Into our first vehicle profile.
DTG SFC.
Gotcha.
This is CC2 violation, correct?
And we got a shutdown. Got personnel. Shutdown looks like let's all go to page 656. Page 656, please.
Yeah, so that was a really fun test to be there. You could really feel the percussion of those engines on your chest. We got a lot of data from that, but from that first hot fire test, but the core stage shut down a little bit sooner than we anticipated. And so we're going to do a second hot fire test here in the next couple of weeks to get the rest of that data and make our engineers and our teams feel confident for our astronauts as we're going into Artemis 1. So in regards to performance and capability, SLS is unmatched. There's more than just meets the eye. So all rockets are not created equal, and there's even more to SLS advantages than just volume and mass and departure energy of the rocket. Its unmatched capability will reduce the complexity, the cost, and the risk associated with payload design, ground infrastructure, and in-space operations that will provide the best opportunity for mission success. So as you can see, the payload masses that we can carry versus just what's on the market currently. So Block 1B would be the first one for Artemis 1, 2, and 3, and then eventually we will upgrade to SLS Block 2, which will carry even more. So NASA's working very hard towards the launch of Artemis 1 to occur later this year. The first flight is considered a test flight of the uncrewed SLS rocket and also the Orion spacecraft. It's a fully integrated system that we're testing out. So this animation shows the Artemis 1 trajectory. So during the mission, the Artemis 1 SLS rocket will launch an uncrewed Orion into Earth orbit, placing it in a path towards a lunar distant retrograde orbit. We'll travel about 40,000 miles beyond the moon. That's a total of about 280,000 miles from Earth before returning to home. This crucial test flight will demonstrate the performance of the SLS rocket on its maiden flight and gather engineering data before Orion returns home at a high-speed Earth re-entry at about Mach 32. That's 24,000 miles an hour. The high-speed lunar velocity re-entry is one of the mission's top priorities and a necessary test of the Orion's heat shield. So that's the bottom part. That's a surface, a flat surface that's going to come in. It's going to protect the Orion crew capsule from about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about half as hot as the surface of the sun. So they'll do that before they splash down into the Pacific Ocean for retrieval and post-flight engineering assessment. So when we get the crew capsule back, we'll be able to do a lot of engineering assessment to make sure that the next one's even better, the one that's going to be crewed. So after one, let me play this again so you guys can see. So after one orbit around the Earth, Orion's going to fly through the Van Allen radiation belts. Then it's going to take about 4 days to get out to the moon. The Orion spacecraft will fly, again, 40,000 miles beyond the moon, which that's further than any Apollo mission ever went. and then it'll start beginning its 4-day return back to the Earth. Even though it's uncrewed, Artemis 1 will provide the first integrated test of SLS and Orion combined. So other things that we're also going to be able to figure out and get some engineering data on, we'll see the assembly and integration and test of the SLS and Orion at KSC. We'll see some tanking and countdown operations going on at the Cape too. So there'll be a first-time operations for our launch pad 39B, and also our mobile launcher, which is our platform that we assemble the SLS rocket on and then roll out to the launch pad. We'll get to do the SLS ascent, the Orion vehicle performance, and lunar distant retrograde orbit. We have mission operations that we're going to accomplish, deep space navigation, flight validation of data systems. And then we're also going to test out deep space maneuvers. We're going to test out our comms and tracking. We're going to validate reentry from lunar gravity assist. And then also we're going to have secondary payload deployment on SLS as we're going out to the moon. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. All right, so like I said, Artemis 1 will also be carrying 13 shoebox-sized 6U CubeSats, and that's going to be held in the Orion stage adapter at the top of the rocket. It's going to be utilizing a commercial off-the-shelf dispenser, which will drop off the payloads primarily as we make our way on our trip between the Earth's orbit and lunar orbit. We, SLS, provided all the secondary payloads a deployment system for their CubeSats. We also included a vibe isolation system to keep their payload safe. We gave them mounting brackets, cables, and our attachments to the avionics unit. The development and integration of these payloads have been great examples of how NASA has partnered with other spacefaring international partners, such as Japan, Italy. We've got some good partners there. So these were good examples of how we partner with our international folks that want to be part of the Artemis program. We also partner with colleges and universities, giving students like you guys in the near future opportunities to contribute to the mission and help future missions for NASA. Some of the highlighted CubeSats with a chance to return data that may be of use to the Artemis program. You guys probably heard Mark talk a little bit about it yesterday. So a couple of those of the 13, we've got Lunar Flashlight, which was actually developed right there close to Los Angeles by you guys in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. What it's going to do is it's going to search for ice deposits and resources on the moon using a laser. Ice is important to us because we can eventually, once we have a base on the moon, we will be able to harvest that ice and turn it into rocket fuel. Another one is Lunar Ice Cube, developed by Morehead State in Kentucky, searching for water in all forms, and then also some other volatiles on the moon's surface using an infrared spectrometer. We also have Luna HMAP from Arizona State. What it's going to do is create a higher fidelity of maps near the surface for hydrogen and craters and other permanent shadowed regions of the moon, previously not explored. These are going to be close to the moon's south pole, and it's going to do it with neutron spectrometers. One of our international partners, with the Japanese Space Agency, or JAXA, is doing Omotenashi, and it's going to be observing the radiation environment and soil mechanics of the moon. So in case we want to be able to use lunar in situ resources to build habitats. And then another one to highlight is Loon IR, who's built by Lockheed Martin in Colorado. It's going to be performing advanced infrared imaging of the lunar surface. So now that I've given you an update on where we are with our first SLS rocket, let me also fill you in where we are with our next one for Artemis 2. A lot of the production work has been going on in parallel at our facilities right alongside Artemis 1. And there's lots of lessons learned from the first one. So think about it when you were learning to tie your shoe when you were a little kid. You know, at first it was just a jumbled up mess, and when your parents would kind of laugh and they would help you out, and eventually you got better and better at tying your shoe. And same thing with rocket building. The first one was kind of a mess, and we've been doing really well learning from our mistakes and applying them to our next one. Already we've seen tons of improvement on our second one, not only with how we build it faster, but it's better. And we can do it so much easier with with better factory setups and that we've learned from the first one. So I really do appreciate everybody's time, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to tell you about this awesome orange rocket and its amazing capabilities. We're really looking forward to the launch of Artemis 1, and hope to share all, we hope that you guys share all the same enthusiasm with us. There's going to be some really, really cool pictures that come out of this mission, and some of the video we'll get to share with you guys from this big rocket that's going to go around the moon. We're definitely excited to share them with you, and you'll see them all over social media. So if you guys get a chance, get online with your parents' help and start following us on our social media. So Andres, I'm going to turn it back over to you and see if we have any questions.
All right, excellent. Can everyone help me give Mr. Hollenbeck a virtual round of applause, please? Wasn't this amazing? Our biggest, most powerful rocket is almost ready to take us to the moon. Okay, Mr. Hollenbeck, can you please help us unshare so everyone can open up their cameras and you can see who's on the other side? Okay, so now you can see everyone. Okay, Ms. Carmichael, Ms. Martinez, Mr. Natividad, can you help us moderate the questions?
Okay. Certainly. So while we wait for the students to go ahead and get their questions in, one question that I did want to ask Mr. Hollenbeck is, when did you know that you wanted to work at NASA?
Well, that's a good question. So two things. I actually grew up in South Florida, right down the street from Pratt and Whitney. So some of these engines that you saw today were actually tested right there in my backyard when I was a little kid. And then when I was in middle school, I actually, my family moved to Huntsville, and just, it was amazing. Got to go out and see the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, and just floored me. And I just knew then that I wanted to have a part in the space industry, and just, you know, have a career that got to contribute to something so cool.
Very cool.
I see Manuel Galvan. Would you like to ask your question? I opened your mic. Let's see. Open your mic. There you go. No?
How about Ariana? She's been raising her hand.
Yes. Ariana, go ahead.
No, now I can.
Oh, okay, Manuel.
Wait,
Oh,
how
dude.
far is the moon?
Ooh.
Good question, Ariana. So the moon is actually 239,000 miles away. So think, the normal car that we use today, the life of that car is usually about 200,000 miles. So think about all those miles covered. We're going to do that in 4 days. We're going to get there in 4 days with this rocket.
Okay, good question.
Thank you.
How about Ariana this time? Ariana, you ready?
Ariana, there you go.
How fast can the rocket go?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I lost you for a second.
How fast can the rocket go?
So it's going to eventually propel our Orion crew capsule at 24,000 miles an hour as it's coming back. That's pretty fast. So again, going back to the car, like I see that car behind you, the average car on the road today is about 100 miles an hour. So this is 24,000 miles an hour. It's super fast.
We have a
Thanks for
combo
the
question
question.
from Justin and Hyro. How do you get a job at NASA, and why do you choose to work at NASA?
So NASA actually hires through USA Jobs. It's a website that you can go and once you finish up college, you can jump on there and upload your resume. But before that, there's plenty of opportunities for internships. And so a lot of kids during their college years actually sign up for internships. Those again are on the nasa.gov site. So once those those opportunities pop up every single year. So yeah, I highly encourage you guys to apply when you get to college and get older.
Hi.
Okay, it looks like Angel has had their hand up for a while. So if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, we can get your question answered.
Okay. How hot is the sun?
Ooh, that's a good question. So the sun, if you remember, we're when the Orion crew capsule comes back at 5,000 degrees coming through the Earth's atmosphere, it's about half the temperature of the sun's atmosphere. So about 10,000 degrees. It's very hot. You wouldn't last very long if you started getting close to the sun. Good question, Anel.
Okay. What about Jocelyn Vega? Jocelyn Vega, you have a question?
Yes.
Hey, Jocelyn.
So there was once water on Mars, but why isn't there any more?
What was that?
What happened to Mars? Like they said that there was water on Mars, but now there isn't.
So Mars is in our future. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the moon first to learn how to live and work in space. And so once we know as humans how to live and work in space on the moon, we're going to use it as our proving ground to go to Mars. And then we've got rovers, like you guys probably saw Perseverance or Percy land the other day on the Martian surface. He's out there trying to figure out where the water is, if there was water there. So he's getting precursor stuff done for us when humans go. So you guys are about the right age that you could be the first person on Mars.
Okay, let's do one more question.
Javel, would you like to ask your question from Miss Lynch's class?
Yes. Why didn't you go on a spaceship?
That's a good question. So I would have loved to have been an astronaut, but unfortunately my eyes were not the greatest. So most of the astronauts have really good vision. Most of them are pilots beforehand. Vision's very important for astronauts. So that's the one thing holding me back. If not, I would have loved to have been an astronaut. And another thing is you also have to study really, really hard in school because these astronauts are super smart. So, keep working hard on your schoolwork and you one day can become an astronaut.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hollenbeck. Please, can everyone please open up your video camera so we can take a photo with Mr. J. Hollenbeck. Anybody, please? Okay, almost there. Marisol?
Excuse me. I can't turn on my camera.
Oh, okay. Those of you
Yeah, that's what happened to me yesterday. I couldn't open my camera.
yours is on, Angel. Okay, all right. So we're gonna take a photo. If your camera's on, big smile and say hi to Mr. J. Hollenbeck. Ready? Big smile. All right, one more. Okay, so again, thank you for being with us today. Remember, this is Destination Space 2021, and we're doing this because all of you are very special to us, to NASA. We want you to do well in school, do all your homework, listen to your teachers, listen to your parents, be really, really good community citizens so that when you grow up, you can come and work with us, okay? Mr. Hollenbeck and I need your help. We have a lot of work and we need your help. So please do well in school so you can come work with us. You asked about working with us and you can start internships even when you're in high school. Some of the NASA centers have programs when you're in high school, but definitely when you're in college. When you're in college, we have lots and lots of opportunities for those of you that are doing well in school, okay? So we took you to Mars. This month, we're taking you to the moon. And today, Mr. Hollenbeck gave us a really incredible talk about the big rocket that we call the Space Launch System. Okay, so thank you once again, Mr. Hollenbeck. Don't forget to come back tomorrow, because tomorrow we have the teacher, the only teacher that has been to space, Miss Barbara Morgan. She's right here in her astronaut photo. She went to space on the space shuttle, and tomorrow she's gonna tell us all about that experience. Okay, so once again, thank you for coming. We're going to conclude our session. Thank you, Mr. Hollenbeck. Thank you so much. Your presentation was amazing, and I know that it inspired more than one of us to do better
Awesome.
in school. Thank you. Have a good day. We will conclude our session now.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
How do you guys take showers out there?
That we're gonna do a talk on that.